Hello, New Jersey Devils fans, and welcome to the Devils Hockey Podcast. I'm your host, Anna Musil, and I've created this podcast for the audio part is for one class, this video part is for a different class, and so this might not even be technically for the video part, might not be technically for. Should I label it a podcast? I don't know, but I created it for two of my classes, and I'm reviewing New Jersey Devils games. And when I'm filming this, and when I wrote this script, we're already in the into the season. We're already 14 games in, I think. So when I edit this and release it, stuff's a bit different, I guess. Oh yeah, and I'm back with my kitchen utensil as my microphone too. So yeah. Um, but this episode is going to be all about the Devils and their off season and basically the roster and all of that good stuff. And so, and I do want it to be known, I'm saying this like every time. I'm no hockey expert, okay? I am still very new to the hockey world, so I will probably say something wrong or stupid, and I'm gonna say sorry right now for that because it'll probably happen if it hasn't already happened. So yeah. Um, Before I get started, I do want to tell a story of how I became a fan of the Devils, and if you watched the first episode, you kind of got like a bit of a brief story. But I found the Devils around Christmas time last year, so around December, because I was the very first game I watched. I was back home in Crescent, and they played the Senators. Yeah, they played the Senators. Was the very first game I watched, and they beat them. I think. Yeah, they did. And so yeah, but that was the very first game I watched. But how I found them was because of TikTok and the Hughes brothers. Because, well, and book talk, because I read a lot of books and I read a lot of hockey books, and so hockey stuff kept popping up, and a lot of stuff kept popping up of like Jack and Luke and Quinn, and Jack and Luke are on the Devils, Quinn's on the Canucks, but they're on the Devils, and so Devils stuff also kept popping up, and so I was like, you know what, fine, I'll watch a game, and I watched the game and I fell in love with it. So that's kind of the gist. Is the Hughes brothers, and my favorite player is on the Devils, and it's not the Hughes brothers. I do love the Hughes brothers. Don't get me wrong. I do love them. But Nico Hischier is probably my favorite. The Captain Nico Hischier. He's my favorite, and like I said, I do love the Hughes brothers. All three of them. They're probably top 5. Yeah. Right? Yeah. Top 5. Sorry, I had to think. Um, so yeah. As well as Seth Jarvis from the Carolina Hurricanes. I do love Seth Jarvis. He cracks me up. If I ever need a good giggle or laugh, I go watch TikTok videos of Seth Jarvis. He's funny. As well as on the Devils team, well, he doesn't have a permanent spot. Last season, when I started watching the Devils, he was playing for him. Nico Dawes, he's a goalie. He's on the AHL team, the Devils AHL team, It's storming outside. There was a tornado close to us last night, so I don't know if you can hear the thunder, but there was a tornado close to us last night. So it was a busy. It was a good night last night. Sorry, but um, Nico Dawes, he was playing a lot for the Devils last season, and he's one of my favorites. I love Nico Dawes. He doesn't have a permanent spot. Like I said, he's on the AHL team, the Utica Comets. But I love Nico Dawes. He's one of my favorite players too. But moving on, I'm gonna start on like the head coach issues that the Devils had last season and into the off season, as well as the weak defense and goalie issues that we fixed. I think. Yeah. Sorry, I'm trying to see if I can get this a little better. I think it did. I don't know. I should have grabbed the black one, not the green one. The green one's ugly, but it's fine. I haven't taken my Addies today, so my ADHD is gonna be a bit everywhere. But yeah, and I'm sorry if when I keep saying because I say a lot. I do also. Mm-hmm. Um, I'm also going to talk about the roster. I'm going to get into the roster. And again, like I said earlier, we're already kind of into the season. And so some of that's changed. And I just realized I don't have one of the player stats. I'll have to go get my computer for that. I'm going to go get my computer real quick. I need that. Oh, look. Meet Bubba. This is Bubba. He's a big bad pity. So okay. Oh, it's raining hard now. Okay. But I'll get into like like I said, pickles don't do nothing. Please and thank you. Sorry, my cat. Um but yeah, like I said, the roster we're into the regular season already. We're 14 games in, and there were a couple roster changes. I have most of them written on here. Um, there's only one that I'll have to look on my computer because I didn't get it written on here because I forgot about it. But I'm getting all of it. I'm getting all the stats and stuff, all the information from the NHL website about the roster and the teams. I just go on the website. Oh, great. Sorry, my phone just got a notification that we're in a tornado watch. Yay! In, in November! It's November! And we're in tornado watches. Isn't that lovely? Yeah. Okay. Anyways, I'm just on um, the Devils side of the NHL website. You just look up the NHL. Um, you just look up NHL.com, and then there's like a little tab that says teams, and you click on the teams, and then it gives you all the teams and their conferences and conferences and divisions, and click on the Devils team roster schedule, and you got it. That's it. Anyways, um, But I'm going to start off with the head coaching issues that the Devils had last season. They had Lindy Ruff, who the Devils fired around March, and the assistant coach, Travis Green, took the position of the interim head coach and for the rest of the season. And all the fans were okay with it because everyone wanted to fire Lindy Ruff. And they were okay with Travis Green coming in, but they did want someone else as the head coach after the season ended. They definitely wanted someone new. And Lindy Ruff got hired on as the head coach for the Buffalo Sabres, and Travis Green got hired on as the head coach for the Ottawa Senators. And Travis Green was one of the top like people that they looked at hiring for the actual position of the head coach, but he got hired on at Ottawa. And the Toronto Maple Leafs, when they lost out of the playoffs in the first round, they fired their head coach, Sheldon Keefe. And honestly, wasn't all that big of a surprise. I was watching the playoffs mainly for the Canucks because of Quinn Hughes and stuff. And so I kept an eye, like I watched all the playoff, like I kept up with all of it. And so I wasn't really shocked because there was definitely some tension at the Maple Leafs with Sheldon Keefe, and so I wasn't surprised that they fired him. But the Devils took immediate interest in him once that was announced, and as they should. Sheldon Keefe is a good coach, and a lot of people wanted him to be the head coach, and it was announced in May that Sheldon Keefe would be taking the position as the head coach for the New Jersey Devils. And so they were able to solve the problem of getting a good coach in, but they were still needing to take care of the weak defense and goaltending. Thankfully, they were able to take care of all of those issues this offseason with trades and free agent signings. They got a great goaltender with Jacob Markstrom, who the Devils have been interested in acquiring since early last season from the Calgary Flames. And we traded Kevin Ball for him, I believe. And then I think maybe a draft pick for 2025, a 2025 draft pick, I think. And we also added defenseman Brandon Dillon from the Winnipeg Jets and Brett Pesce and Stefan Noesen from the Carolina Hurricanes, even though Stefan Noesen isn't a defenseman, he's a forward. But we got him too, and he was a good get. They also now have a healthy Dougie Hamilton going into the preseason, and having him will make a big impact this season. And I will say, I didn't get to watch Dougie last season because he got injured before I started watching, and a lot of people were really hyping him up, like, oh, he's gonna do so good, he's gonna make such a big impact in this defense. I personally, I don't think he's made that big of an impact. I'm more disappointed on how much hype people were giving him, that he hasn't been living up to it. Like, he's been doing good, he just hasn't been doing great, you know? And then Brett Pesce, he was out from a season-ending injury last season, and he was week to week, and that there was a good chance of him being back for the season opener. He was not back for the season opener. He didn't return until 2 weeks ago, I think now. So yeah, and I'll get more into that in just a second. And then Luke Hughes took after his brother Jack, and he was out for 6 to 8 weeks due to a shoulder injury that he got at the beginning of September during a training session. So he should be returning, if everything goes to plan, the end of October, beginning of November. And that was pretty accurate. Him and Brett Pesce came back on the same day, and they had both been training and working together, and they came back the same game against the Detroit Red Wings, and that was at the end of October. That was the second to the last week of October. And the reason I said he took after his brother Jack is because Jack was out at the end of last season due to a shoulder injury that he got and ended up having to have surgery. So Luke is just copying his brother. And Luke's injury actually upset a ton of fans because the reason everyone found out about it wasn't because the Devils made like an official statement. It was because there was a video of him in a sling at the University of Michigan football game with his family on like the sidelines, and he had a sling on, and fans started freaking out, like wondering what the heck happened to Luke, what's going on. And a few days later, the Devils finally put out a statement about Luke, revealing that he got injured during a training session. And with Luke and Brett being injured, the defenseman lineup was a little unclear on who the Devils planned on having up in their spots, with there being a good chance that Pesce will be ready for the opener, which he wasn't. Makes it a bit easier, and for that, I didn't add one of the defensemen because I thought Pesce would be back, but I did add it. I did write it on here. It's on the back of here. I'll just have to turn it around. But I was really wondering who they were going to call up for Luke, and I had a really good feeling that it was going to be Simus Casey because he has made a really good impression with the coaches, but I'm not sure who they'll call up. And I was right about Simus Casey. They did have him up. They did keep him for the global series and then a few games after that. And then he got brought down to the AHL because of his contract, his entry level contract. I don't know the terms of it or something, but a lot of people are saying it was because of the contract. But moving on. Speaking about the roster, I will be going over the roster now, and at the time, this was not 100% set because of Luke and Pesce, but I do have the accurate, like, I do have the roster 100% now. But if you don't know what the roster is made up of, there's 4 sets of 3 forwards that make up a line. So there's 4 lines, and with 3 players on each line. And then you have 3 sets of 2 defensemen. And so I think that's 20, yeah, 28, 18 forwards. I'm not a math person, so now let me count 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. Yeah, 12, 13. I don't know. I'm not a math person. But I'm going to start off with the forwards. I'm going to start off with Captain Nico Hischier. He's number 13, and he's a center. And stats from last season, he had 67 points with 27 goals and 40 assists in 71 games. And he's being a captain and being a GOAT, and already made a really huge impact this season. I think still that he leads the league in goals with 10. He was the first player to make it to 10 goals in only 14 games. So he's already made a huge impact, already being a GOAT and captain. And then next is Jack Hughes. He's number 86, and he's a center. And some stats from last season, he had 74 points with 27 goals and 47 assists in 62 games. And Jack Hughes had a really slow start this season. I honestly think, the way, my own opinion, I just think he was playing a bit scared at the beginning of the season because he had a shoulder surgery, and he was just didn't want to get hit, really didn't want to hit, and again, I just think he was playing a bit scared. He's definitely got better as the game, like each game, he's improved a ton, and so I think he'll definitely do better. But he was definitely playing scared and was a bit slow to start. The next is Jesper Bratt, number 63. He's a left wing, and his stats from last season, he led the team with points and assists. He had 83 points with 27 goals and 56 assists in 82 games. Him, Dawson Mercer, and I think Luke Hughes were the only ones that played every single game last season. They didn't miss one game. And Jesper Bratt, I think he leads the team in assists this season as of right now. And then next is Curtis Lazar, number 42, and he's a center. And I really thought about not putting him in this video because he got injured a couple games ago, and it was unsure of what happened, what was wrong, but it was announced that he had a knee surgery and that he's going to be out indefinitely, which I didn't really know what that meant, like it was career ending and he was done. But apparently it just means they're not sure when he'll be back or if he'll be back. So it's not necessarily career ending yet. But because I love Curtis Lazar, I'm keeping him in. Last season, he had 25 points with 7 goals and 18 assists in 71 games. And the player they brought up in his place, this is the one I needed my computer for. Oh, is it on me? Okay. I thought it was going to make me have to type in my password. I didn't really want to. They brought up Justin Dowling and from Utica, I believe. Or did they? They might have had him on the injury reserve. Last season he played 2 games and he had 1 goal and 1 point in those 2 games. And he's played 2 games so far for the Devils this season, and he has 1 point from 1 assist. So that's who they brought up for Curtis Lazar, was Justin Dowling. And then moving on to Timo Meier, number 28, a right winger. And his stats from last season, he had 52 points from 28 goals and 24 assists in 69 games. And then next is Erik Haula, number 56, a left winger, and some stats from last season. He had 35 points with 16 goals and 19 assists in 76 games. Next is Dawson Mercer, number 91, a center, and his stats from last season, he had 33 points with 20 goals and 13 assists in 82 games. And Dawson Mercer, he has played every single NHL career game. He has not missed one game. And he's played, I think it was 260 straight games. He has not missed one game. Andre Palat, number 18, a left winger, and his stats from last season, he had 31 points with 11 goals and 20 assists in 71 games. Next is Paul Cotter, a number 47, a center who was traded to the Devils this offseason from the Vegas Golden Knights, and we traded Alexander Holtz for him, which was actually a lot of people were not happy about it because everyone loved Alexander Holtz, and so everyone was really kind of upset. But honestly, we because we really the Devils really benefited more than we expected because Paul Cotter has already made a huge impact. He led the team in goals for a minute for the first 5-ish, if not more, games. And so we definitely impacted more. But his stats from last season in Vegas, he had 25 points from 7 goals and 18 assists. Just because I have this season stats written on here that from so far. In 14 games, he has 8 points from 6 goals and 2 assists. So he's already made a pretty big impact. Did I do Stefan Noesen? I don't think I said Stefan Noesen. Yeah, I didn't say Stefan Noesen. So I'm going to do Stefan Noesen. I skipped him. Stefan Noesen, number 11, a right winger that we got from Carolina Hurricanes last season. We signed him as a free agent. And his stats from last season, he had 37 points with 14 goals and 23 assists in 81 games. And he has already made a huge impact on the Devils, especially down low near the goal. That's where he gets a lot of his goals, is down low near the goal. Next is Tomas Tatar, number 90, a left winger who signed to the Devils in the offseason from the Seattle Kraken. His stats from last season, he had 24 points from 15 goals, from 15 assists and 9 goals in 70 games. And Tomas Tatar is a former Devil as well. I think a year or so ago, he was at the Devils, and then he went to the Kraken. And then next is Nathan Bastian, which I think Nathan Bastian might be out for a few games because he got injured at the last game. And so I think he might be out for a few games. I'm not sure yet. But his stats, he's number 14, and he's a right winger. And his stats from last season, he had 12 goals with 7 assists. Not 12 goals, 12 points with 7 assists and 5 goals in 54 games. And Bastian had a very iconic moment last season when during the Stadium Series he scored a goal and he did this as a celly. It doesn't look iconic when I do it, but it was really iconic when he did it. So yeah. And then next is Curtis McDermott. He and Nathan Bastian they've healthy scratched Bastian a couple of games to put Curtis McDermott in, but I think he's going to be taking Bastian's place if Bastian's out for a few games, which we'll figure that out by tomorrow because they play tomorrow. But Curtis McDermott, he's number 23 and he's a left winger. We got him in a trade in March of last year, and he had 3 points with 1 assist and 2 goals in 45 games. And the Devils picked him up last season because of how physical he is, which he's very physical. And he also had an iconic moment last season when it was I think it was the last meeting against the Rangers, and the Devils and the Rangers have a a rivalry. They have a really big rivalry, and they had this one player. His name's Matt Rempe. I think they sent him down to the AHL this season, like not too long ago. I think, can't remember. And he's a menace. he was fighting all the time. That's like all he did was fight and fight. And he's a really big guy, and he's a forward. I thought he would be like a defenseman. No, he's a forward, and he's tall. Like he's over 6 foot tall. And defensemen are usually the bigger ones, and no, but he's tall. And um, they dropped their gloves. Everyone on the ice, besides for the goalies, dropped their gloves within 2 seconds and started fighting. And he beat the crap out of Matt Rempe. So it was nice. It was nice to see that because I don't like Matt Rempe. And then next, I will talk about the defensemen. I will start off with number 7, Dougie Hamilton. He had to miss most of last season, like I said, because he got an injury. I think it was a pectoral thing. But he's back and healthy, and he looked really good during the preseason. And his stats from the games he played last season, he had 16 points from 11 assists and 5 goals in 20 games before he had a season-ending injury. Next is Brandon Dillon, number 5. The Devils signed Dillon as a free agent from the Winnipeg Jets in the offseason. Last season, he had 20 points with 12 assists and 8 goals in 77 games. Dillon was signed for how physical he is, and it is already showing a good sign in the preseason, which is still showing it as a good sign in the regular season. Next is Jonas Siegenthaler, number 71. Last season, he had 9 points with 8 assists and 1 goal in 57 games. And then Simon Nemec, number 17. Last season, he was called up from the Devils AHL team in Utica. And Nemec had a great rookie season, and it shocked a lot of people with how well he did last season. He had 19 points with 16 assists and 3 goals in 60 games. And I'm excited to see what he does this season. And I'll get more on that in a minute. And then Simas Casey, number 24. Simas is coming from the University of Michigan. He signed his entry-level contract. In his last season there, he had 45 points with 28 assists and 7 goals in 40 games. And I was excited to see how he played. And he played really good for being a rookie. He scored his first NHL career goal in his second ever career game. So, and then Jonathan Kovacevic, I can't say his last name. Jonathan Kovacevic, number 8. We traded from the Montreal Canadiens in the offseason, I think, for a 2025 draft pick. And his stats from last season, he had 13 points from 6 goals and 7 assists. And then next is Brett Pesce, number 22. The Devils signed Pesce as a free agent in the offseason from the Carolina Hurricanes. Like I said earlier, he had an injury and that he was still working it through, but he came back the same day as Luke Hughes did, which was the second to the last week of October. And last season, he had 13 points with 10 assists and 3 goals in 70 games. And then lastly is Luke Hughes, number 43. Last season, I go on a bit of a tangent with Luke Hughes, so just forewarn. Last season was Luke's rookie season, and he had such an incredible season. He was one of the finalists for the Calder Trophy, which went to Chicago Blackhawks center Connor Bedard, which Connor Bedard definitely deserved it. He had like 60 something points, and he had to miss multiple games because he broke his jaw playing against the Devils. But he still had the most points of all the rookies. And the Calder Trophy was between Bedard, Brock Faber, I think it was, and then Luke. And I think Luke was the third finalist. But like I said, he had an incredible rookie season with 47 points, with 38 assists and 9 goals in 82 games. And like I said, he was one of the few. Him, Dawson Mercer, and Jesper Bratt were the only ones who played every single game last season. And he also had the most time on ice on the team, which is incredible since he was a rookie. And I'm really excited to see how he plays when he gets healthy this season. And he's a few games in, and he's playing pretty good. He's playing a bit like his brother, who he was in had got injured too. Playing a bit scared, but with each game he's getting better and better, getting more of his confidence back. But Luke Hughes, he gets so much unnecessarily necessary hate. Luke does, and I hate it so much. I hate when athletes get hate because I'm like, all these haters. I'd love to see them play against the people, the athletes that they hate on, play and play the sport that the athletes play because they wouldn't be able to do it. And I think people forgot last season that he was a rookie and that rookies make mistakes and that every player makes mistakes. Veterans make mistakes. Sidney Crosby makes mistakes. Connor McDavid makes mistakes. Nathan MacKinnon, Kyle Marker, Quinn Hughes. Um, why did Ovechkin? I can't think of his first name, but he's another goat. He still makes mistakes. Everyone makes mistakes, but there are so many people that hate on Luke unnecessarily because he's gonna make mistakes. He's not gonna always be flawless, and a lot of people hate on him because he is Quinn and Jack's little brother, and Quinn doesn't make very many mistakes. I will say that. Like Quinn Quinn's the captain of the Vancouver Canucks, and Jack Jack and Quinn are both superstars of their teams, and so they're expecting Luke to play just like that in his first year, and they're just hating him unnecessarily. And a lot of people are also only saying he's in the NHL because of his brothers, which, with his stats from last season, is not true. He was one of the Calder Trophy finalists, and but like I said, I can't stand when people hate on athletes because no, I'd love to see them play the sport. Love to. But the defenseman lines, Dougie Hamilton and Brandon Dillon are on a line together, and then Jonas Siegenthaler and Jonathan Kovacevic, and then Brett Pesce and Luke Hughes, and Simone Nemec and Simus Casey got reassigned to the AHL. He got brought down to the AHL because of his contract. And then Simone Nemec, they've been doing a healthy scratch on him, I believe. And uh, when Luke and Brett Pesce came back, and I didn't know if Jonathan Kovacevic was gonna stay on, so he was the one that I didn't write any of his stats on. But Simone Nemec, he had struggled at the beginning of the season, and so that's why they've been doing a healthy scratch on him. But I think our defensemen have gotten so much better. I think these pairings, Jonathan Kovacevic and Jonas Siegenthaler have been the best defensive defensive pairing in the league. I think they have had the least amount of goals scored while they're on the ice, and they've just been two of the top defensemen so far this season. And um, Luke and Brett Pesce together, I think have been really. I think Luke being with a veteran like Pesce has also helped him with his confidence because he was on a line with Nemec last season, so two rookies on the same line. So I think having him on the same line as Pesce is going to be good for Luke. and it has been so far. Now the last part of the roster I'm going to talk about are the goalies. There's usually only 2 goalies on the roster, but I'm going to talk about 3 because I love Nico Daws, and I'm going to talk about him. I love Nico Daws. But starting off with our main goalie, which is number 25 Jacob Markstrom. We traded defenseman Kevin Bahl to the Calgary Flames for Jacob in the offseason. Last season, he played 48 games and won 23 games and had 2 shutouts, and he had a 2.78 goal against average and a 905 save percentage. He has already played really great for the Devils. Our goaltending had a 4-game struggle so far, 4 games in a row of a struggle, but Jacob Markstrom has already got his first shutout of the season against one of his previous teams, the Vancouver Canucks, with a 6-0 shutout. So that was a really good game. And that was only 2 games ago, and then he played his previous team again, Calgary Flames, but they shut us out 3-0. It all came in the third period was when it went downhill, but you know it happens. And then our other goalie is Jake Allen, number 34. We traded a 2025 NHL draft pick to the Montreal Canadiens for Jake Allen in March. Last season, between the Canadiens and the Devils, Allen played 34 games and won 12 games, and he had a 3.44 goal against average and a 895 save percentage. And he also had his first shutout of the season as well. He had the first one for the Devils against the Utah Hockey Club. Still can't stand that name. But he made history with that game because he was the first ever goalie to have won against 33 different NHL franchises. So that was pretty cool. And then lastly, I want to talk about number 50, Nico Daws. Like I said, he's not on the Devils roster. He was last season, but I love Nico Daws. He's one of my favorite players. He was called up last season from Utica, and he played 21 games, and he won 9 games, and he had a 3.15 goal against average and an 894 save percentage. And I think he just needs some more experience. I think he has the potential of being a really great goalie, and I think just spending a little more time in Utica and getting more experience, he'll definitely be a great goalie in the future, be a star goalie. But I just wanted to talk about him because he's one of my favorite players. And I wouldn't be surprised if we see him at some point in time this season. But, yeah. Um, like I said, we're already into the regular season. I really should have redone this script for this video because of how far along we are. Yeah. At the time the preseason had already started, and they had just left to go to the Global Series in Prague, and off-season games. The Devils won 1 off-season game out of 7, I think they played, and the one that they won was actually all Utica Comet players because they had left for Prague, and the Devils' main roster had left for Prague, and so all Utica Comet players were playing for the Devils, and they beat the New York Rangers. And Martin, I can't say his last name, Bodor, his son, I think his name is Jeremy Bodor, played that game, and he looked like his father. I do believe that the Devils will have a great season this coming season as long as everyone stays healthy, especially the Hughes brothers. I love Jack and Luke to death. I do. I love them, but they better stay healthy the rest of the season, or I'm gonna kick their butts. I'm gonna fight them. Not really. Not gonna fight them because I don't know them, but I'll fight them if they don't stay healthy. But I do think they'll definitely have a good season this season, and it's already shown. We've had a few struggled games so far, but we definitely I think we're definitely gonna have a really good season. And overall, I'm excited to see how the season goes and see how Coach Keefe does as head coach. And he's already proven to be incredible. He's very passionate. He he has a personality, unlike Mindy Ruff, but he's definitely done good. Like the very first day of practice of training camp, the first thing he had them do was skate lines, which is like running poles in baseball or softball, or like suicides in basketball. I don't know what they do in football. Run the 100 yards. I don't know. Um, but it was quite like the scene from Miracle. You know when Coach Brooks made the team skate lines at the end of a really bad game and didn't stop until someone threw up, and didn't even stop when someone threw up. He only stopped when said one of the players said their name and like where they're from and all that, and then he finally stopped. But it was literally quite literally out of that movie. And so he's already playing a really doing a really good job. And at the end of every episode, I do a joke, a weekly joke. Well, this isn't weekly. Podcast is weekly, but a weekly joke. And the joke may be punny, it may be funny, it may be corny, and it may just be plain dumb, but it's a joke. And I'm gonna always try to keep it hockey related. And this week's joke is, oh, this one is funny. What do you call a monkey that wins the Stanley Cup? This one's really good. A champion. You get it? Because the chip and the champion, a champion. That one's pretty funny, I think. I think that one's really good. Um, so yeah, I will see you in the next video I do. So, see you later, alligators.